After dropping dead, I transmigrated into the youngest son of a baron. Our family was dirt poor, but my mom was stunningly beautiful, and my dad treated me like the village's last hope. On the day of my 5th birthday, when they tested my talent, I shattered the crystal ball. All 4 elements lit up brightly, with excellent affinity. My father announced on the spot that he would personally teach me starting tomorrow, but I quietly glanced back at the 7-year-old maid behind me, thinking, I have to teach her too. In a second life, I need something to look forward to. I died. To be precise, I died suddenly. Before I could even finish typing the last period on my keyboard, everything went black. When I opened my eyes again, I was looking at a face so beautiful it made my heart skip a beat. Exhausted, yet that natural nobility couldn't be concealed. A classic oval face. Skin as white as the finest mutton fat jade, a delicate figure, and a pair of eyes red and swollen from crying, gazing at me with tenderness and carefulness. Wait, how was she? Holding me? I instinctively moved, then saw a little hand. Pale, chubby, with 5 distinct dimples at the knuckles. I tried to clench my fist, but the unfamiliar, uncontrollable softness made me freeze instantly. Smaller. Everything about me was smaller. I, a struggling author who had spent 3 years writing web novels and countless sleepless nights, had transmigrated. Good news. I transmigrated into a male baby, so my gender hadn't changed. Bad news. None yet. It took me about 3 minutes to digest this fact. In my previous life, my parents died early, and my relatives acted like I didn't exist during holidays. Except for the editor who hounded me for chapters, my phone contacts never exceeded 10 people year-round. To be honest, suddenly having such a beautiful woman holding me, her tears falling drop by drop onto my face, warm and slightly salty, it didn't feel bad. Another face appeared beside me. A man, around 30, with sharp features, thick eyebrows, and an inherent air of authority when he looked at people. He craned his neck closer to me, tentatively touched my cheek with his rough hand, then clumsily took me from the woman's arms. His movements were so careful, completely at odds with his dignified face. But his beard was really scratchy. I held back from flinching, letting him hold me clumsily, and sighed inwardly. All right, a fresh start. This life, I'll treat it as a gift from the heavens. Next came the days of getting used to a new body and a new environment. I set a rule for myself. I couldn't be too extraordinary. In my past life, so many transmigration protagonists, speaking like adults at 3, shaking the world at 5, 9 out of 10 were burned as monsters, and the remaining 1 didn't survive 10 chapters. I wasn't that reckless. So I obediently drank milk, slept, and occasionally babbled a bit to keep up appearances. My parents gave me the nickname Little Treasure, which sounded pretty tacky, but I put up with it. After all, what kid names themselves right after birth? That would be too absurd. Until my 1st birthday. The custom in the territory was to formally name a child at 1 year old. My parents held me in the hall of the Lord's manor, surrounded by a few old servants and respectable people from the territory. My father cleared his throat, ready to speak. I seized the moment and, with the clearest pronunciation I'd practiced for 3 whole months, uttered 2 words, Ro, N. The entire hall fell silent for an instant. Mother covered her mouth, her eyes reddening again. Father was stunned for 2 seconds, then burst into laughter and waved his hand grandly. Great. Ron Lance. From now on, my son's name is Ron Lance. The old servants around exchanged glances, murmuring among themselves. The young master can speak at 1 year old? Not just ordinary babbling, but a clear name. I nestled in mother's arms, looking obedient and innocent on the surface. But inside I gave myself a mental thumbs up. The reputation of a prodigy had to be built up step by step. No need to start too high. Just being a notch smarter than peers was enough. The days that followed went smoothly. At 1.5, I could run and jump. At 2, I could chat with the old farmers in the territory about the harvest. At 3, I began to follow mother to watch her handle the estate accounts. Father sometimes stood by my bed in the middle of the night, looking at me, the eagerness and expectation in his eyes impossible to hide. I knew what he was thinking. The Lance family, hereditary baron. Sounds pretty intimidating, but in reality, they're dirt poor. The territory has at most a couple thousand people, 5 villages, and not many who actually pay taxes. The most decent town wouldn't even compare to a residential community back in my previous life. The other world is massive, but the population is really sparse. It took me 2 years to slowly get a handle on this continent's lay of the land. 3 human empires sit like 3 massive boulders in the center of the map, with several neutral kingdoms sandwiched in between as buffers. Our Lance family is attached to the tail end of one of those small kingdoms, the kind of corner that gets first pick for conscription during war, but that the royal family never remembers during peacetime. Besides humans, there are the Beastman Empire, the Elf Forest, the Dwarf Kingdom, and all sorts of races lurking in the dark realms. According to the books, it's called the coexistence of 100 races. But in my translation, it means the one with the biggest fist calls the shots. My father, Borg Lance, probably had ambitions when he was young, but unfortunately, the family fortune declined, and all his ambitions were ground down into wrinkles. I'm his greatest hope now. I know it, but I say nothing. The debts of affection I owed in my past life, I must repay in this one. The territory being poor doesn't matter. We can take it slow. Nor does my lack of strength. I'm only 3, with plenty of time ahead. At 4, I took the initiative to ask my father for a personal maid. It's the custom for noble heirs to have one, and he'd planned to arrange it after testing my talent at 5. I spoke up a year early, reasoning that I could manage daily life on my own and didn't need overly thorough care. It was more important to find someone my age and cultivate mutual understanding from childhood. The real reason, to save magic crystals. The Lord's manor was truly destitute, and I didn't want my father to buy an expensive, trained maid from the city just to keep up appearances. Children from the territory were familiar, cheap, and obedient. After a moment of silence, my father agreed. On the day of selection, a dozen young girls came. The oldest 9, the youngest 5, all in faded old clothes, standing in a nervous row. I walked back and forth in front of them 3 times, and finally stopped before one girl. She was 7, with slightly yellowing hair, but her eyes were very bright. While the other children shrank back as I approached, she didn't retreat. Instead, she tilted her head up and stole a glance at me. Her eyes filled with curiosity and a hint of nervousness. She'll do. What's your name? Vivian. You're with me from now on. A month later, Vivian officially became my personal maid. The little girl learned quickly. After 3 etiquette lessons, she had memorized everything, and her movements in serving tea were proper and graceful, though occasionally she'd still get so nervous her hands shook. I didn't say it out loud, but I thought it was well worth it. Then came when she was 5, the day of the magic and martial talent assessment. That day, the reception hall of the Lord's manor was packed. Father and mother sat at the head of the room, with Martha, the family's intellectual and mature maid, standing by with her hands at her sides. Vivian had changed into a clean maid's uniform and stood half a step behind me, even more nervous than I was. I carried the crystal ball to the center of the hall and took a deep breath. Actually, I had secretly been meditating. I tried it since I was 3, off and on, but I didn't dare to take it too seriously. I was afraid the elemental fluctuations might be too strong and alert mother. But I had a sense of certainty. I could sense the elements. I closed my eyes and cleared my mind. Those intangible things brushed against my consciousness like a spring breeze. Water, earth, wind, fire. All 4 elements surged into my perception at once, as clear as 4 lamps in the dark night. I guided them into the crystal ball. Then the whole living room lit up. Blue, brown, cyan, red, the 4 colors intertwined, bursting from the crystal ball, illuminating the old tapestry hanging on the wall with perfect clarity. The light was so intense that even the surprise on my mother's face was clearly visible. My father shot up from his seat. For elements, all high-grade affinity. My mother was relatively calmer, but her fingertips trembled slightly. She had long noticed my secret meditation sessions at night, but she never expected my talent to reach such heights. The room fell silent for several seconds. Then my father rushed over and hugged me tightly, his beard prickling me as I tried to dodge, his laughter shaking the windows. My son, the Lance family has a worthy successor. My mother's eyes reddened as she murmured softly, "Little Ron, do you want to be a mage or a warrior?" I struggled out of my father's embrace and thought it over seriously. "I want both." "A magic swordsman?" Mother smiled. Father calmed down with a stern expression. "Are you sure? The path of a magic swordsman is the hardest. You have to excel at both, and falling short in either makes you useless." "I'm sure." He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. "Fine. Starting tomorrow, I'll teach you swordsmanship, and your mother will teach you magic." Mother added from the side, "The child has such good talent, we should pick a proper maid for him. How about going to the city?" "No need." I cut her off. "Vivian is fine. We'll train her within the fief." Mother was taken aback, looked at me, then at the little maid behind me. Vivian's hands were trembling with nervousness, but she straightened her back and didn't flinch. Father patted my shoulder. "Suit yourself." And so it was decided. The days that followed were actually simpler. Mornings were for sword practice with Father, afternoons for meditation and spell theory with Mother, and evenings for an hour teaching Vivian basic meditation. Yes, teaching Vivian. The girl's magical affinity wasn't the best, but but she made up for it with diligence. I broke down everything Mother taught me into bite-sized pieces for her. From element classification to meditation techniques, he instilled it bit by bit. The basic elements of magic are water, earth, wind, fire, light, and dark. Light and dark are rare among humans. There are also two hidden elements, space and time. Lightning and ice are considered variations, but their essence is still water and wind. Young master, what are cells? They are the smallest components in your body. Can't you see them with your eyes? No, but they do exist. When meditating, imagine every cell making friends with the elements. Take it slow, no rush. Vivian listened half understanding, but her eyes sparkled. Young master knows so much. I rubbed my nose and didn't reply. I couldn't say I learned this from watching popular science videos in my past life. Days passed one by one. In the spring when I was 6, I had a formal sparring session with my father. Wooden sword against wooden sword. I channeled wind element onto my legs, used a wind step to charge forward and slanted upward. Father pressed his greatsword downward, numbing the web of my thumb. Taking advantage of the recoil, I stepped back half a step and formed a spell seal with my left hand. Earth spike. A spike rose from the ground, forcing Father to jump away. Taking advantage of the opening, I swung my sword again, pressing a fierce 3-strike assault until he was forced to take one seriously. With a heavy clang, I stumbled back 3 steps, and Father sheathed his sword with a laugh. Great progress. Take the day off and go have some fun. I was about to say no, but then I glanced at Vivian, who was clenching her little fists and cheering me on, and changed my answer. Okay. That afternoon, I strolled around the territory with Vivian. 2 guards followed at a respectful distance. The rice in the field stood taller than me, rustling in the wind. Passing by Old Man Burns' field, I stopped to chat with him about the harvest. Vivian looked around, finding everything new and exciting. Then we stumbled upon a rare sight. The territory's mage was casting a rain spell. A crowd had gathered around, and they automatically made way when they saw me. I stepped to the front, watching the middle-aged mage lift his staff and chant. Ancient syllables flowed from his lips. Each one carried a strange sense of power. The sky began to gather dark clouds. Then the rain fell. The first drop struck my forehead, cool and refreshing, with that tender touch unique to water elements. Then came the second drop, the third drop, landing on my cheeks and neck, so refreshing it made me want to close my eyes. Vivian secretly reached out to catch the rain, but after catching 2 drops, she shyly withdrew her hand. I pretended not to notice. The mage put away his staff, and cheers erupted around us. The farmers in the fields thanked him repeatedly as rainwater trickled down the rice leaves, gradually soaking the cracked soil. I stood still in the rain. In my past life, I had written about so many rains, about protagonists attaining enlightenment in the rain, killing in the rain, bidding farewell in the rain, but never had any rain fallen so vividly on my face as this one. The coolness seeped into my skin, and along with it, the weariness of my past life seemed to wash away a little. I tilted my head up. The rain was getting denser, but I didn't want to take cover. Vivian held open the small umbrella she always carried, hesitating whether to raise it over me. I waved my hand, telling her to keep it for herself. I just stood there, watching the rain beat down on the rice leaves, sink into the soil, and trickle into the small ditch beside the field. Then I noticed that the water elements around me were moving. They were much more active than usual, as if awakened by the rain, dancing and swirling joyfully, circling around me. I instinctively opened my perception, letting those cool little things surge in. They flowed across my skin, through my meridians, and finally converged at my core. It felt clean, as if my heart had been washed. I closed my eyes, listening to the sound of rain, wind, the laughter of farmers in the distance, and the soft splashes of Vivian stepping in puddles. Those accumulated feelings from my past life, whether anxiety or numbness, suddenly felt lighter in that moment. I recalled many transmigration novels I had read in my previous life, where protagonists either planned to conquer the world or rushed to build harems upon arriving in another world. I'm probably the most unambitious kind. 5 years after being reborn, my greatest ambition is just to prop up the rundown Lance family, so my mother doesn't sigh over the account books at midnight, and so my father can hold his head high in front of others. And then just keep living like this. Every day practicing swordsmanship, meditating, teaching Vivian magic, and occasionally going out to look at the crops in the fields and the rain. Doesn't seem so bad either. The rain gradually lightened. The sky began to show a hint of brightness through the gray, and a faint glow rose along the distant ridgeline. I withdrew my gaze, turned to Vivian, and said, "Let's go. Time to head back." Okay. The The little girl closed her umbrella and trotted after me, her boots splashing in the muddy water. I walked ahead, a smile involuntarily tugging at the corner of my mouth. Truth be told, living a second life, you don't have to do anything earth-shattering. Being able to live each day of this life solidly is more important than anything. The wind blew the last traces of rain onto my face. The water element still swirled gently around me, carrying the dampness and coolness after the rain. Drops of rain fell onto Ron's face. A refreshing feeling washed over me. Each time I experienced this, my mood and understanding were different. The magical civilization had already been applied to life in this other world. But without specialty magical herb plants, without discovering high magic metals, high magic minerals, etc., the territory was classified as barren, making it still difficult to develop. At least, their Lance family employed field mages and used other farming techniques, so the people generally didn't go hungry, which was good enough. Each territory's situation was different. Ron and Vivian, like the villagers present, let the raindrops fall on them, experiencing this rare rainfall. It wasn't artificial rain from technology. Mages guided the water element storm clouds. After a while, having watched the mages perform their magic, the villagers gradually dispersed. Ron said to Vivian at the right moment, "Meditate hard, practice magic, and one day you can bring rain for the villagers too." "Great. Vivian will work hard." Vivian's little heart trusted Ron deeply. At that moment, the young girl was already imagining the scene of bringing rain for her family's fields. It must be quite interesting. The prematurely mature little maid had her own little thoughts. The middle-aged mage named Quincy stepped before the young Lord Ron and performed the mage's salute, placing his hand on his left shoulder and bowing slightly. "Young master, you've come." "Yes, thank you for your hard work, Quincy. It's my duty." After exchanging a few words, the mage Quincy took his leave from Ron. Ron then continued to take Vivian for a stroll. They finally reached the vicinity of Vivian's home. "Vivian, let's go inside and take a look." "Okay." Vivian had been looking forward to this for a long time. This was also one of the perks Ron gave Vivian, aside from specific holidays. After all, she was just a little girl. He wanted her to think of the Lord's Manor as a boarding school. Of course, she also had to take care of Ron, who was lazy in daily life. One could let others take care of daily living, but training required diligence. That was generally how Ron planned it. At the front of the village, the scattered cottages made it easy to get lost on the paths, but Ron, who had been here several times before, wouldn't lose his way. Before entering the courtyard of the village house, Vivian goes to inform the master of the house first. Two somewhat elderly commoners in plain clothes come out. Naturally, in this other world, since most of Vivian's wages are handed over here each time, Vivian's two relatives have recently started a small business. Vivian has been Ron's personal maid for a year now, and there's a faint sign of Vivian's mother's belly growing. "She's pregnant," Ron says softly, having informed the family, and Vivian, who is again by Ron's side, asks in confusion, "What's pregnant?" "It means that you, Vivian, are going to become an older sister, and your family will have a little brother or sister." "That's wonderful," Vivian says, then looks at her mother with slight confusion. The two commoners welcome Ron inside. "Young Master Ron has arrived. I'll go prepare some food." "No need. I'll just sit here for a while this time." Ron sits on a stone stool in the courtyard, taking in the pastoral atmosphere. Not far from Ron is the vegetable and fruit garden planted by Vivian's family. Not big, but the small fruit tree produces very tasty jujubes. When I came a few months ago, I had Vivian pick some to taste. This countryside is like the pastoral scenery of my previous life. Because Vivian's home is located on a high point in the front part of the village, from here, you can faintly see the grain in the fields of the village ahead. A gentle breeze comes. Finally, a relaxing day. Seeing again Vivian's mother's entrustment to her. Every time I see Vivian nodding like a chick, Ron can't help but smile faintly. That's enough. In the evening, thinking that he still had to have dinner with his family, Ron didn't want to be scolded by his mother. "Vivian, let's go." "Young master, won't you stay for a meal?" "No, next time." Vivian smiled again and left with young Master Ron. Another beautiful day. It hadn't been too long since they last saw her parents, so this time Vivian didn't worry too much as she left with Ron. In a noble family, the masters sit at one table and the maids at another. This was a bit uncomfortable for Ron, but after all, there weren't many maids. It was basic noble decorum. All right, he couldn't go against his parents. The meals were decent. Every couple of days, Ron was lucky enough to eat precious ingredients like magical beast meat. It wasn't as luxurious as what other wealthy nobles ate daily, but it was still good. To Ron's palate, magical beast meat was tasty, but it could clearly be used in many more dishes. This showed that people in this other world still lacked refinement in their way of life. It was like the dietary differences between the East and West in his past life. For now, he'd leave it at that. The main reason was that Ron was lazy and didn't have much free time to research dishes from his past life. Maybe he'd look into it when he actually had some free time in the future. Different ingredient combinations. In that case, it would be good to look at apothecary books as well. After the meal, he would ask his mother. While eating, Ron thought about a few things, all of which were useful for ingredient pairing. The simple desire to satisfy his appetite. These small wishes were where Ron's interest in learning gradually came from. After the meal, before heading for his post-meal exercise, Ron asked his mother, "Do you have any apothecary books?" She did have some, but only basic potioneering. Little guy must never try any potions yourself, nor let anyone else try them. Tina spoke with unusual seriousness. Understood, mother. I'll only test potions on ugly little animals. Mainly because Vivian would feel sorry for the cute ones. Mourning for the little animals for 3 seconds. Epsilon. 3. They've encountered Ron, the big bad wolf. That's good. You go do your post-dinner exercise earlier. When you come back, I'll bring you the basic potions book. Sometimes, Ron would unconsciously fall into old habits, going to great lengths to explain things. Yet even this year, he still didn't plan to reveal that he was a reincarnator. Peaceful is fine. After all, what difference does being a reincarnator make? There's not much he can do at the moment. It's not like Ron was a genius scientist, and besides, different civilizations have their own reasons for existence. Peace is a blessing. Walk after meals, live to 99. No, in this magical world, elements nourish silently, and ordinary folk without disaster can live well over 100 years. So, walk after meals, live to 200. Haha, not a bad goal. Unlike other times, Ron had enough freedom between dinner and nightfall. There was no need to wait for the Lord Father's days off. He would just stroll along the small paths near the Lord's mansion. Most of the area around the Lord's mansion were wealthy commoners, with 1 or 2 village shops, and he had wandered through them countless times. Unfortunately, this still couldn't be called a street. Having seen many big cities in his past life, he felt some regret but didn't dwell on it. After his return, his mother had indeed brought him potionology. In the days that followed, after training, when he had nothing to do, Ron usually had 2 kinds of books in his hands, potionology and magic. With his past life's perspective, Ron discovered that potion making was different from chemistry. Material changes were influenced by elemental content. The key was that high-level magical plants had their own elemental flows, changing every moment. Configuring high-level potions wasn't simply a matter of proportions. These proportions included elemental content. How could one brew a better potion? It required sufficient mental power, and mental power could perceive the elemental content within magical plants. Conclusion: a high-level potion master, or rather alchemist, must also be a mage. Now, it just so happens that the magic swordsman has some demands on mental strength, and brewing magical potions is challenging, which only piqued Ron's interest further. Just like back in his school days, at a certain crucial moment, he would lock horns with a math problem. There were no high-ranking professional apothecaries in the territory, so Ron started self-studying with a basic book on pharmacology. At the age of 6.5, while taking a walk after a meal, Ron unconsciously muttered the specialized terms from the pharmacology book. 5-petal blossom, cold in nature, combined with fire fruit, can harmonize and enhance the training effects of warriors. In Ron's understanding, it's the mutual harmonization of 2 substances of different natures. 7-petal flower, a mid-tier magical ingredient, obtainable in the magic beast forest. Reviewing such matters, the little maid Vivian by his side finally couldn't hold back and asked, "Young master, does young master aspire to become an apothecary?" "No, my aspiration remains the magic swordsman, but apothecary is a good secondary elemental profession, isn't it?" Young master is always right. Ron chuckled without interrupting Vivian's praise of him. It felt nice to have his little maid compliment him. Put him in a good mood. "Are you interested in pharmacology, Vivian?" "Not really. Vivian is interested in taking care of the young master." "Did someone teach you to say that?" "No." "What's wrong, young master?" Ron stopped his walk and looked at his little maid with interest. "So your real interest is taking care of the young master?" "Of course. Vivian's main duty is the glorious maid." Ron was surprised. Indeed, being an exclusive maid could be considered glorious among commoners in another world. He shook his head. The values of another world were always a bit hard to understand. Fortunately, he was a noble. After dinner, with a bit of time before nightfall, Ron asked Vivian about her recent progress in meditation. It was quite good. Specifically in magic, she was more skilled in water magic. Water magic includes water healing, rain summoning, and so on. Well, everyone has different interests. Before attending his mother's magic lessons, Ron planned to study the basics of pharmacology a bit more, thinking that he should also find some time to try it. A few days passed uneventfully. One autumn day during Ron's holiday, this time he went a bit farther. Quincy, the only magic shop in the territory, seems a bit far away. Boggs once helped Quincy, and at least for now Quincy has no intention of leaving. Over the years, Quincy has trained several rural mages for the territory. Ron and his party enter. Several villagers with minor ailments are waiting for the mages to cast water healing and light healing spells. This place could basically be renamed a village medical clinic. At least for now, no clerics have built a church here. Without divine clerics, they rely on mages to cure diseases with magic. Young Master Ron. Young Master Ron. No need for formalities. By the way, is Mage Quincy here? Not here. What a pity. I'll take a look around. The small figure wanders around the shop and finally buys two basic potions. One is magic thorngrass, the other is water lotus. Magic thorngrass is an earth-water dual-element potion, while water lotus can harmonize its properties. It's mainly a low-level potion for stopping bleeding and healing wounds. Speaking of which, there are similar magical potions here, which could truly be converted into a medical workshop. This peculiar magic shop arises from the intersection of mages and alchemists. Naturally, it also sells magical weapons. Among them, a third-level magic sword on display made 6.5-year-old Ron covetous. However, due to his young age, Ron still only uses a wooden sword for his swordsman training. The poor Baron's allowance for his young master was insufficient. That would have to do. He handed over the magic crystals to the apprentice mage and headed back home. In the Lord's courtyard, Ron and Vivian gathered some bottles and jars, beginning the great endeavor of potion making. For low-level potions, the flow of magical elements within the magical plants was not obvious. They tried first by simply measuring out quantities. Then, using their limited mental energy, they sensed changes in elemental content. Failure. Failure. Success. There was indeed some technique to it. Ron worked earnestly. Out of so many purchased low-grade herbs, only one batch succeeded. They caught a native chicken, cut it open, and the tall gatekeeper was not afraid. The potion came in two types, internal use and external application. The prepared magic potion is for external use. That's good, as we don't know if different creatures would react differently to taking it internally. External application is much safer. For external wounds, at least we can see how they're healing. The blood clotting potion is working. The sword wounds are closing quickly, suggesting the potion accelerates the body's natural healing. The village chicken was taken to the back kitchen, and Ron seriously began his next research. Every time Vivian helped hand him bottles or something, she had a strange feeling. When Ron was serious, he seemed very mature, giving people a sense of reassurance. After several holidays, Ron felt he had some understanding of potion properties. He inexplicably said to Vivian, "Today, let's try making a potion feast. We'll buy the potions, but the main ingredient is fish." Ron personally made a simple fishing rod with Vivian. They went fishing. In this other world, fishing with Vivian for the first time, turning over rocks together to find bait, felt like going back to his childhood in his previous life. When I was a kid, I'd go a little wild and even play in the water. Now that I'm a noble, it's better to just stick to fishing. And honestly, in a natural, unpolluted river, there are really a lot of fish. Vivian, with the same small fishing rod, experienced the joy of a good catch. "Young master, another one, another one." That's about enough. After a while, the group headed back. They tossed the purchased medicinal herbs into the fish soup. Magical plants naturally contain a bit of elemental energy, different from magical beast meat, but mixing ordinary fish with magical plants. Could it make the fish meat have the same effect as magical beast meat? Everything was yet to be verified. Anyway, there was nothing else to do. Over the years, I'd never had a big meal seasoned with magical medicine. In my past life, I knew to pair medicinal herbs with dishes. There's no reason it shouldn't work in this life. Light the fire, boil, stew, and wait. Lift the lid. There's some fragrance already. Remembering my promise to Mother, I let the native chicken taste the first bowl first. It felt like a long time had passed. The native chicken showed no abnormalities except for being a bit more energetic. Ron bravely took a bite. After all, this medicine was non-toxic to begin with. What harm was there in eating? Delicious. Asterisk caret caret asterisk. Unlike the first time I brewed potions, where I failed many times, this time my first magical meal was a great success. The magical civilization of the other world has finally unlocked a new profession, Master of Magical Cuisine, a talent specializing in magical meals. Currently, Ron doesn't really realize he's invented a new profession. He just feels he did a small thing while idle this time, with a bit of accomplishment in his heart. On the continent, some people have stumbled upon making magical potion meals, but they never continued. Only by making more and more, to the point of publishing books and teaching others to pair potions with dishes, can an elemental profession truly flourish. And Ron, who was sometimes idle, just went ahead and did it. This holiday, he went fishing. Next holiday, instead of having the gatekeeper help, the two little ones personally caught free-range chickens. The time after that, they'll collect bird eggs. Without internet entertainment, there's really nothing left but to amuse oneself, and the variety of dishes grew. Vivian, who aspires to be a maid, is very attentive to meals. Ron, being a lazybones in daily life, dedicated himself to teaching, and afterward, it was mostly the maid Vivian who did the cooking, with Ron preparing the ingredients. Because of this, Vivian, who initially had little interest in potion making, gradually delved deeper into the study of potions, to make better potion feasts for the young master. Good, a fine aspiration. Now, his mother and father no longer privately remarked that Ron had missed out on childhood. Instead, they constantly reminded him, when the potion feast is ready, you must have those country bumpkins try it first. He readily agreed. After one incident with the bumpkins, it became common practice to name a dish only after the bumpkins had gone 3 days without any issues. Regarding this matter, Father Borg felt it was a good way to increase the territory's income. But on that note, one evening, Ron personally sought out Father Borg. The moon hung in the sky, and Ron's small figure knocked on the door. Creak, the door opened. Little Ron, it's rare for you to come find your father on your own. Speak up, have you run out of magic crystals for your allowance? No, let's talk inside. All right, come in. One big, one small, they sat down on either side of a magic lamp. Beneath the lamp was a small table and 2 chairs. Under the glow of the magic lamp, it was evident that my father had been in a good mood lately. Earning magic crystals was something that could be resolved with magic crystals, and anything solvable by magic crystals wasn't a problem. Magic crystals are the universal equivalent in this other world. In the magic world, there are magic crystal mines. The quantity of magic crystals is astonishingly large, and their uses are extensive. When magic crystals are left unused, they naturally attract external elements. But because the absorption speed is slow, it is generally negligible. However, used magic crystals still have value, so they are used for trade. If left untouched for over 100 years, spent magic crystals become new crystals again. 1 mid-grade magic crystal equals 100 low-grade magic crystals, and 1 high-grade magic crystal equals 100 mid-grade crystals. Top-grade magic crystals have a price, but no market. They are themselves magical materials and are usually bartered. If one insists on exchanging them for magic crystals, both parties negotiate the price. Most magic crystals are too large to carry, so magic crystal cards were invented, a product of magical civilization. After tasting the potion feast, Bog's eyes glittered as if filled with magic crystals. The two sat facing each other. Turning to his father, Ron said, "One's strength determines the amount of magic crystals they deserve. I'm worried that the potion feast might bring trouble. Don't we have close ties with the great nobles? Exchange the potion feast books with them for some benefits. It's enough that we are one of the origins of the potion feast." Borg looked at Ron in surprise, as if seeing his son for the first time. Wealth matches strength. Borg only gradually understood this truth as he grew older. How could Ron say it so easily? Regardless of his father's expression, Ron had to say some things anyway. After all, it wasn't the first day he showed signs of precocious thinking. The potion feast will inevitably become widespread. We were just lucky enough to be the first to compile it into a book. Now the magical world shows signs of even greater prosperity. Anyway, to avoid the trouble of piracy and difficulty in promotion, cooperating with others is the first choice. Borg truly understood Ron less and less. Son, what do you mean by piracy and promotion? These. I learned them from a traveling merchant a few days ago. In short, piracy is. Ron spent a lot of effort explaining. At the same time, his father's horizons expanded exponentially. With the wisdom of Ron II's personality, he could easily discern many things. If one lacked strength, it was best to honestly remain a rural noble. But the territory could not remain impoverished forever, and sharing risks through cooperation was not a bad idea. Bog opened his mouth slightly, finally understanding. He ended with, "That traveling merchant, little Ron, did you keep him?" Ron replied, "I did not keep the traveling merchant." "Then it's fine." With these words, accompanied by a sigh from Father Bog. And so, Bog lamented that the territory had missed out on a talented individual. Theta at this point. As usual, Bog guessed, though he was still unwilling to believe it true, that all of this was solely Ron's insight. After all, Ron was too young, a 6.5-year-old child, who understood enough to advise his father was already commendable. It must have been the traveling merchant. It must be. Little Ron, your father agrees. Things will be handled well. Also, from now on, however many magic crystals you want, just say the word, and your father will agree. Thus, because of this incident, Ron gained the greatest support within his father's power. This was great news. For now, he had no plans. He would focus on his own training first. Then, Father, I'll take my leave. Tomorrow, the books on the potion feast will be delivered to you. The next day, Vivian added a new menu to her records, and the multi-page menu was handed over to her father for execution. After that, time passed as usual. Borg sent someone to the Count's mansion. During wartime, the Count had the authority to summon nearby lower nobles. Borg was good at making friends, but not so good at business. This time, Borg inadvertently applied Ron's marketing concept. Ron's concepts had successful precedents in his previous life. Initially, the Count didn't pay much attention, but he had a daughter named Una, 18 years old, who was gifted in commerce. Many of the Count's estates were managed by her. Since the Count also had a son, Una had inheritance rights to the title but didn't need to worry about inheriting it. So she focused on business rather than military development. The Count was pleased to see his daughter like this. However, it also made him reluctant to marry her off. With such great ability, Una naturally secured some freedom. It was precisely this that gave her the confidence to reject so many suitors. A menu, packaged with great solemnity, and attached with cooperation details. Baron Berg tactfully ceded most of the benefits, but unfortunately, the Earl turned up his nose at it. Fortunately, the project eventually made its way to Una. Generally, gifts and the like that the Earl didn't want were handed over to Una, a business prodigy, to handle. Una casually picked up this gift, said to be from a remote barony, without much thought. She glanced at the letter's contents with boredom. A menu? A magic potion feast. Upon closer inspection, Una was instantly captivated. She also had magical talent, but it wasn't exceptional. And even with the aid of various high-level potions and advanced magical elixirs, she still struggled to break through to the master level of a mage. Realm division, consistent across all elemental professions. The realm of being a formal elemental professional with strength certification from the guild ranging from level 1 to 10. Note, strength certification determines professional levels, not the realms from level 1 to 10. For elemental professions, the master realm and above are not classified into grades. Ranks: formal practitioner, master, legendary, demigod, divine. Due to the fracture of civilization, mages and such are all classified under the master rank. The simple reason, those above master in their respective professions disdain to go for guild certification. In the current era, the only distinctions within the master rank are terms like master venerable, such as so-and-so great sword venerable. Another point, master means transcending the mundane. Transcendent existences below legendary usually have their own unique skills, and a so-called great sword venerable might also lose to a great sword master. Legendary is different. Legendary is a living legend. Among them, the vast majority of beings cannot reach the master realm. The usual level 1 to 10 professional certifications are used by various guilds to facilitate assigning adventure tasks. Common terms refer to formal practitioners of such and such level. Levels 1 to 3 are low rank, 4 to 6 mid rank, 7 to 10 high rank. The same classification applies to potions and magical artifacts. Master-level elemental practitioners can fly briefly, among which mages have better control over external elements. A wind element master-level mage can fly in the air for extended periods. At the master-level elemental realm, one enjoys eternal youth and slowed aging, living anywhere from 3 to 400 years. There are some extremely rare magical potions in the world that can extend lifespan. In this wondrous magical world, the cultivation system is gradually becoming more refined. Una, finding it difficult to reach the master-level mage realm, focuses more on business. This threshold is not easily crossed. The world maintains its own balance. Most who fail to break through face a regression in their elemental realm, or even elemental chaos leading to explosive death. Multiple failures can also crush a person's ambition. Assistance for breakthroughs, such as magical items, is rare. The more Una looked at the multi-page menu, the more it felt like she was smelling the aura of countless magic crystals. Someone, call for an apothecary and bring in a top-tier chef. The male chef stood respectfully to the side, while the male apothecary leisurely picked up the menu to examine it. These magical plants, added to food. These two, mixed with these three. A bold and ingenious idea. Yuna asked from the side. So, can we give it a try? We can, but tasting. The apothecary said cautiously. Understood. You may leave now. Yuna then handed the menu to the chef. The apothecary walked to the door, and Yuna reminded him. My orders are that none of you are to reveal today's events. As you command, Miss Yuna. The Count's influence was vast, and the apothecary had no desire to offend the Count's estate. Afterward, he received a generous reward, a large sum of magic crystals in hand, and a few more magic crystal cards, each typically holding a fixed amount. Such a wonderful number made the apothecary feel like he had struck it rich. The chef dared not say a word either, preparing the ingredients and following the menu, cooking each dish once. Delicious. Even more miraculous, the magic feast mixed from those few potions had a similar effect to drinking low-grade magic potions. The magic feast could be consumed multiple times, as long as there was a brief interval between servings. Though the effect still couldn't match that of magic potions, having any effect at all was good enough. The key point was, it tasted so amazing. Yuna felt that the food she had eaten in previous years was nothing in comparison. Speaking of which, were there really mages so wasteful with magic plants, and with so much free time? Not afraid of dying from tasting the dishes? But for now, Yuna didn't know the first taste test was for the chicken. Anyway, a goal was set. The remote fief mentioned in the letter, Sandy's domain. Prepare the carriage. I, Yuna, am heading to Sandy's domain. Days passed, and one day, Ron was discussing magic with Vivian in the courtyard. Suddenly, there was some noise outside. A guard hurried back to the manor. Baron, the Count's daughter has arrived. The voice was loud, and Ron naturally heard the guard calling for his father. He had a bad feeling, sensing something was about to shatter. My ordinary life. Give it back. But then he saw his father tidying up gifts and going out to welcome her personally. Meanwhile, his mother hurriedly took Ron to the back. To meet the Count's daughter, even the heir of a lord must dress properly. Nobles might not care about much, but they cannot lose face. Under the assistance of his mother and Vivian, Ron had to put on a somewhat elaborate set of clothes. It must have been that recent menu that brought the Count's daughter here. But the script was wrong. Originally, the Count should have acted with propriety and invited the Baron to discuss matters. Yet it was the Count's daughter who came in person. Since they were in the territory, the young genius lord researching new dishes was no secret. Originally, the Baron father could have claimed he invented them himself. The plan shattered. Once in the territory, it wouldn't be easy to bluff one's way through. Deceiving the Count's daughter could have minor or major consequences. There was no need to take greater risks. Ron had already made a decision in his heart, but his ordinary life, at least an ordinary life, shouldn't have ended so soon. Without even meeting the Count's daughter, Ron already felt full of ill will toward her. This person was paying too much attention. Oh, no, all right. Finally dressed, Ron, his mother, and Vivian went out together to welcome the Count's daughter. By the time they greeted her, the Count's daughter had already been received by Father Borg in the courtyard. Yuna had no idea what this little brat Ron had to do with anything. Plus, Ron instinctively walked behind his mother, being as low-key as possible. Yuna indeed overlooked Ron at first glance. Ron didn't think much of it, at least feeling that the Count's daughter was very beautiful and didn't point out the shabbiness of their home. The girl's expression was calm, which also made Ron estimate that Una would be quite troublesome. A clever woman is indeed hard to deal with. When they came out, the role he had planned to play, no matter what, had to be carried out. Ron and Vivian followed their mother into the inner room. To be honest, this inner room's reception area was one of the few places in the Baron's residence that matched noble status. Furniture made of elemental wood and the like. Not ostentatious, yet not lacking in refinement. From beginning to end, the beautiful-faced Una sat gracefully in her seat. Even though her position was at the lower end of the host's seat, she didn't say much. In business, harmony brings wealth. Una would use her identity as the Count's daughter to facilitate matters, but she also understood basic principles. The host, Borg, spoke first. Miss Una, what brings you to our home? Speak frankly. It's about the magic potion feast. Una even humorously referred to it as the magic potion feast. This was merely Ron being too lazy to think of an elegant name, and such straightforwardness was a good thing. Unconsciously, Borg glanced in Ron's direction. Ron made a gesture, hoping Borg would understand. Sure enough, the tacit understanding between them, forged through years of sparring, was truly remarkable. Borg knew Ron wanted him not to voluntarily mention the inventor's identity. Borg said, "Isn't the cooperation agreement attached to the menu? Does the Count's estate have any specific requirements?" Borg sighed softly. Could it be that the Count no longer valued the camaraderie from their youth, when they had adventured together? In truth, among the nobility. The Count had long ceased to regard Borg's father, his former lackey, to the point where he didn't even care about the gifts from old companions. Different people had different temperaments. Still, Borg sighed inwardly, hoping the Count would leave some profit for his barony. As he pondered, he was pleasantly surprised to hear Miss Eunice say, "The profit share can be increased by 1 portion, making it 3 portions in total. Your barony's magic potion feast business will be under the Count's protection. However, I would like to meet the inventor of the magic potion feast." Una, with her own business acumen, naturally knew that talent was key. Only with the right people could new dishes be developed more quickly. Truth be told, Ron had countless recipes from his previous life. Though he didn't know them all, he could always experiment bit by bit, and mastering just 1 or 2 dishes was enough to spice up his meals. But even this caught Una's interest. With that, any hope that the Count's daughter had merely come to negotiate was dashed. "Farewell to my quiet, ordinary life." Ron stepped forward. "I invented all of these. There's no way Vivian co-invented them with me. Besides, the original idea was mine from the start." Ron absolutely did not want Vivian to leave him. Over the years, he had come to see Vivian as family. "You? Really?" Una's eternally unchanging expression finally shifted. "He's just a little boy, isn't he?" "Duh." To be precise, Ron was 6.5, nearly 7. Una looked him over, a boy dressed in the attire of a young nobleman. He must be the heir to a baron. His expression was confident, yet within that certainty, his face bore an unmistakable reluctance. It seemed he didn't really want people to know he was the inventor. The replication of dishes from a past life was an innovation in every respect here. Since Ron didn't have many holidays in a year, and not every holiday was spent researching new dishes, the new menu that was finally presented, with so many pages, was largely thanks to Vivian's efforts. Vivian, who knew nothing about potions, even boldly asked Tina for help. Tina had even more free time than Ron. She answered many questions, thus also participating in the creation of the magical cuisine. Since they were all family, Ron simply took the trouble upon himself. Before Una could say more, Ron said, "Miss Una can leave your chef and apothecary here to participate in the development of the magical cuisine. For all new creations, the Baron's estate will take 30%, and the Count's estate 70%. We will absolutely not reveal any secrets here, and the Count's side can participate throughout the entire process. Any new creations will certainly not be hidden and will be discussed first with the personnel left by the Count." A few words. Ron spoke naturally and lightly, without any sign of stage fright before the noble Miss Count. He had faced many leaders in his past life. So what if they were leaders? They were still just people. After all, one must be reasonable. Besides, the Baron's side had already been so cooperative. Ron's performance made Una inexplicably believe that he indeed invented it. She had seen many geniuses in the world, but rarely one as versatile as Ron. Una understood that potionology, related magical studies, and culinary innovations. His composure in handling situations, his willingness to share benefits to reduce risks, truly all-round. Ron spoke eloquently, while Una, having traveled widely and conversed often, had a more comprehensive perspective. Ron must be a rising star. That was Una's thought, rising star just being the equivalent term in this other world. A faint smile played on Una's face as she gracefully stepped closer to Ron. "Little brother, how old are you, and what's your name?" Ron replied, "My name is Ron Lance, and I'm not little brother. Also, I'm 6.5. Although Ron tried to sound mature, a 6.5-year-old always has a childish tone. Mature words, immature voice. An indescribable sense of contrast. Moreover, Ron's father was robust and could be called a handsome middle-aged man, while his mother was among the ranks of stunning beauties. As for Ron, his little face already showed signs of handsomeness, a product of his genetics. With chubby cheeks, a clean face, and a serious expression, he was a little adult. A handsome little adult at that. Una couldn't help but feel a bit of fondness, though it was just a favorable impression, nothing more. It merely stirred a maternal affection within Una. If only her little brother or her own child could be like this. This unique contrast made Una momentarily forget her main task. Without realizing it, she began teasing the little boy. Una said playfully, "A little boy is just a little boy. A true 6.5-year-old little genius. Isn't that wonderful? Genius or not, what does it matter? And don't call me little boy anymore. My name is Ron Lance. I'll call you little boy." As she spoke, she unconsciously reached out with her fair hand and pinched Ron's chubby cheek. After all, she was a count's daughter. In that instant, Ron's mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. Dodge or not. In the end, he couldn't escape the fate of having his chubby cheek pinched by the older sister. Oh, my ordinary life. He bid a tearful farewell to the days of teasing little maids. High IQ big sisters are even harder to fool, making Ron feel even more sorrowful. After a while, Yuna remembered where she was, in another noble's residence. She let go. Ron turned aside, sulking in a childlike manner. He only felt embarrassed, nothing else. Over the years, he had built up an image of being precocious and mature in front of his parents. Now it was ruined. Instead, all the adults laughed, thus covering Yuna's momentary awkwardness. Wasn't this also the mother's high emotional intelligence? She was the first to laugh. Little Vivian, simple-minded, only found that the pretty big sister had bullied her young master. For once, she glared angrily at Yuna. At the critical moment, Ron was thoughtful and waved his hand to signal Vivian to calm down. After all, he couldn't let his image collapse for nothing. But this moment still made Yuna notice Vivian. Yuna then said, "The little maid is very cute. The kid has good taste." Because of this, Vivian's hostility toward Yuna immediately decreased. She wanted to say something, but as a professional maid, Vivian still chose to stand silently by Ron's side. A minor matter. The main business had to be discussed. As Yuna returned to her seat, she pondered her strategy. Since the inventor was a noble heir, then it wouldn't be appropriate to bring him to the Count's estate. They could only collaborate with the Baron's household. Yuna's words were startling. "I want to have in-depth cooperation with this little brother. Take note, only with him." What did she mean? Was she suggesting bypassing Baron Borg? The room fell silent for a moment. Not wanting to let the atmosphere become too awkward, Ron quickly said, "Big sister, just cooperate with my father." "I appreciate your kindness, big sister. This is mainly about considering the issue of title inheritance. Since Yuna sees Ron as a promising prospect, she would naturally support him. But Yuna didn't know that Ron had always been an only child. Having Ron as his only son was already a blessing. Borg had been injured during an adventure in his early years, but because of that incident, Borg had also succeeded in bringing back a beautiful wife. In the early days, the fearless Ron had once directly asked, "Father, why don't you work harder? I want a little sister." Note. What playfully cheeky behavior, but the answer was clear. Yuna gave Ron a deep look. His mindset was indeed that of a little adult. Shortly after speaking, she understood Yuna's intention was to help him. Borg also said, "Working with me is the same as working with my son. Miss Yuna, feel free." The father was quite open-minded and just thought, "The little guy is so capable at such a young age." And Yuna inexplicably felt envious of this noble family's harmony. Women also had inheritance rights, which made her relationship with her eldest brother not very good. Faced with the harmony of another family, Yuna inexplicably felt tired. The deal was done. In the end, he cooperated with Baron Borg. After thinking it over, Ron still showed up at her door. It was already the next morning. This was Yuna's residence, the place where she received guests. "Little brother, so proactive, let me think. Do you have a request? I hope you can keep the fact that I am the inventor a secret." "Fine, but when it grows big later, it can't be hidden forever." "That'll do. We'll talk about it then. From now on, I'll show up less often. These matters will mainly be handled by your people." "Fine," Yuna agreed. "Nothing much. I'll take my leave now," Ron said. "Wait, little brother, you want me to do something for you? Shouldn't you let me see if you're worth it?" Yuna said casually. Ron thought for a moment, then decided low profile was the way to go. Besides, aside from being a bit of a prodigy, he didn't think he had much to brag about. He said, "What's all this about worth? Big sister is just trying to fish for information, aren't you? Not telling you. If you won't help, then forget it." He pouted like a child, but Ron knew Una would cover for him for a while. "We'll talk later. I'm off." Every time she saw Ron's behavior, Una felt a little lighter inside. Maybe it was because Ron had no ulterior motives toward her. Ron just wanted to return to his ordinary life. What could he possibly ask of her? Una was really a big target, an eye-catching one. Sensing that the little guy didn't seem eager to get closer to her, Una thought, since there were no big deals coming up soon, she might as well stay for a while. That way, she could be the first to try the new magic potion feast. Well, it was all for the stomach. Ron rushed home and was immediately asked by his mother, "You little rascal, did you go to Yuna's place with any mischief in mind?" "How could that be? Do I seem like that kind of person to you, mother?" "No, you are. Actually, sometimes even I, your mother, can't quite figure you out. Yesterday you really acted out of character. You were so childish yesterday." Oh, Ron couldn't stand it anymore, recalling the scene of being pinched by the older sister and being teased by his mother. What's the big deal? I shouldn't have dodged yesterday. What else could I do? See? You little rascal, you're just holding it all in. Tina teased. Mother really knew how to hit Ron's sore spot. But then again, she was genuinely charmed by Ron yesterday. The contrast of serious Ron from yesterday was rare. But for Ron himself, life is tough. Still, he had to push forward. Mother, I'm going to my swordsman training class. We'll deal with the future later. Yesterday was over. From today onward, Ron thought he would have some peace for a while. The next day, that is, the second day, Yuna came again. Big sister, why haven't you gone back yet? Are you really that free? Not busy recently, but what about your new dish? Ron finally understood. She was just waiting to satisfy her appetite. To avoid involving Vivian, Ron had to personally handle this new dish himself. As usual, he bought herbs and went fishing by the river. Seeing the big sister standing idly by wasn't ideal. Have you seen this? A fishing rod, bait, cast it down. If you want fish, why not just use a wind blade spell? Life, this is what life is, you know. What kind of life? Seeing Ron like this, Yuna thought for a moment and joined him in fishing. Just for a change of pace. Fishing calmly was indeed quite pleasant. But why should the fish he caught, used for the new dish, be fed to the chickens? 3 days later, the non-toxic new dish would finally be ready. Got it. Got it. But that's no reason for the lady's hard-earned catch to feed the chickens. Chickens dig for bugs and swallow them whole. So sometimes chickens do eat meat. But not all types of free-range chickens like meat all the time. The elemental chickens of this other world are somewhat different. They prefer to eat lettuce that carries faint traces of elemental energy. If you're not careful, the vegetable patch will be pecked clean by the free-range chickens. When Yuna saw that the free-range chickens were still hesitating about whether to eat the magic potion feast, she was furious. Underscore, even her father had never tasted something she made herself, even though she only provided the ingredients here. Ron said helplessly, "Didn't my fish end up being eaten by the free-range chickens too? They'll eat anything when they're hungry. You don't need to keep an eye on them. I'm going to training now." Yuna understood. Indeed, Ron's fish were there too. She finally relaxed a bit. But she still had to wait 3 days before she could taste the new dish. She put the magic potion feast aside for now. Feeling bored, Yuna watched Ron's swordsmanship lesson for a while. Board taught Ron the basic course for a swordsman apprentice, consisting of 64 movements. Each movement had to be performed in a continuous flow to be effective. It was quite like a set of boxing or palm techniques. But this set of exercises is designed to increase the body's coordination. At the same time, some movements are quite difficult, going against typical human movement habits, but once mastered and practiced regularly, the swordsman would then be able to execute tricky sword strikes. The most remarkable thing was that after one round, elemental power would naturally flow. The natural world of the magic realm inherently has a considerable amount of elemental content. The movements help the body naturally attract elements, achieving the goal of nourishing the body. After several rounds, combined with physical training like weighted running and medicinal baths during bathing, sitting still to draw elements to the essence reservoir, forming an essence crystal in the lower abdomen, greatly increasing combat power. When sitting still, the swordsman could drink magic potions in advance. Typically, there are corresponding magic potions for weighted running and for practicing the 46 movements. For mages, it's mainly meditation, nourishing the body while using elements to nurture the spirit, achieving the goal of enhancing the soul and increasing mental strength. Body cultivators and mages share some commonalities, but their focuses differ. On site, besides Vivian, there was an additional graceful older sister. Yuna was seeing Ron work this hard for the first time. Vivian's timely actions were those of a very competent maid. Unlike watching those big men, watching a little boy undergo swordsman training was quite interesting. Mainly, Yuna discovered Ron's hard-working side. By the way, Yuna also knew that Ron knew alchemy, and should also know magic. The little fellow's ambition was to become a magic swordsman. Since magic swordsmen train in both magic and martial arts, many end up learning a mix of things, but mastering none. Little Ron, he should be able to do it. For some reason, Yuna felt confident in him, until Borg arrived. After a sparring session, Yuna was not only confident, she even thought that Borg, who hadn't reached the level of a great swordsman, wasn't qualified to be Little Ron's instructor. Some geniuses can truly be called prodigies. Little Ron wasn't even 7 yet. Yuna learned from Tina, who had come with her, that Ron had talent in all 4 elemental magic attributes, all of good quality. The little fellow had reason to be proud. Astra's happy face. Nearby, Yuna and Tina talked about the Magic and Martial Academy. "Dear Madam, I can recommend Ron to the Royal Magic and Martial Academy. What do you think? But isn't the minimum enrollment age for the Royal Magic Academy 12 years old?" Taking advantage of the reputation of the Royal Magic Academy, Yuna mentioned another academy. There are still good academies to choose from before the age of 12. She promised that the little one would definitely enter the Royal Magic Academy in the future, but for now, how about enrolling in the Toby City Magic Academy? But the rumor says the minimum age for Toby City Magic Academy is 8 years old. There are always exceptions. Tina knew there were exceptions, and in fact, Yuna's residence, the Count's mansion, was located in Toby City. It's just a word from Yuna. I need to discuss this with my husband and child. That night, after dinner, Yuna brought up the matter. Ron said seriously, going early. It's no use at all. Aren't they just teaching basic things? Father and mother are enough. Ron thought. I'll talk about it later. I don't want to leave my parents so soon. Staying at home is fine. Ron felt that his parents' full attention and teaching was worth everything. All right, that's fine. The next day, Yuna found Ron. In Toby City, a great swordsman and a great mage will take you as their apprentice. So what? They'd still teach basic meditation and more advanced swordsman training methods. Same thing. Not going anywhere. Ron needed to plan carefully. From his mother, he learned that the Magic and Martial Arts Academy was somewhat like a small university from his past life. Good teachers gave lectures, the rest was free, and just passing the final exam was enough. So free that skipping classes was fine. The library was open. By then, he didn't even know if he'd need a mentor. He should keep a low profile and at least find a suitable mentor. Yuna's approach conflicted with Ron's idea of developing quietly and low-key, so he rejected it. After that, Yuna reluctantly accompanied Ron. Another grand potion feast was already complete. Yuna really had nothing better to do. No help for it. At least the older sister had good character, so he took her as an extra playmate. For 3 straight months, even Yuna hadn't expected to stay this long. The place had the most abundant food, and from time to time, Ron's remarks were somewhat hard to understand, whether about business difficulties or noble problems. Asking the little kid actually yielded a few words of insight. Afterwards, bored Ron invented little games like poker, but they were a player short for Dodiju. It seemed as if Ron was an endless source of business opportunities. Sometimes, Yuna really wanted to know how Ron could come up with so many pastimes. Over time, Ron regarded Yuna as a friend, and there was naturally no need to hide certain things from a friend. Just some recreational items, nothing too extraordinary. 3 months passed. On this day, Yuna was about to set off back to the Count's mansion. Finally, there was something important enough that required Yuna to personally handle it. At the Count's daughter's carriage, a group of members from the Baron's mansion came to see her off. Originally, Yuna lived not far away, so Ron led Vivian a few steps to join in sending off this older sister. Both parties were present, but Yuna inside the carriage spoke up. Little Ron, come here. Oh, no, reluctantly, at the Count's daughter's command and under his parents' urging gaze. Ron stepped up into the carriage one step at a time. The majestic beast-drawn carriage of a great noble. Inside, he felt the spaciousness even more. No sooner had he entered than Yuna threw her arms around Ron. No, I can't go on. Can't breathe. XX so soft. What's going on? Could it be that after coming to this other world for a few years, this is how I'm going to die again? No way. Finally, Yuna belatedly realized something. She loosened her hold on the little one in her arms a bit. Little Ron, Vivian, big sister really can't bear to part with you. Phew. Alive. Ron had never realized how fresh the air could be. Then he heard Yuna's heartfelt words, and crucially, there were faint traces of tears at the corners of her eyes. Well, Ron couldn't bring himself to be angry. However, little Ron still pouted and turned away, ignoring the teasing big sister Yuna. He had planned to only be a little sulky, but because of his small stature, he ended up acting just like a child. Yuna clearly realized something. Don't be mad. Little Ron, big sister was wrong earlier. I'm not angry. Really. After a while, Ron finally calmed down a bit. Geez, why can't he show his mature side in front of Yuna? Once his image was ruined, it never came back. Yuna thought she knew little Ron well. Seeing his calm expression, she figured he really didn't mind what happened before anymore. After that, they started chatting casually. Yuna pulled Ron to sit on the bench of the carriage. With every sentence she said, she deliberately moved closer, while Ron moved back a little. Ron was truly afraid of Yuna's sometimes overly enthusiastic behavior. At least at that moment, Ron showed exactly that. Little Ron, I'll definitely come visit often. You can come often, but don't bring too many people. Little Ron is still so shy. Since you know I'm shy, that's good. One step forward, one step back, another forward, another back. Finally, Yuna stopped teasing Ron. She paused, her expression suddenly turning serious, exuding the aura of a noble merchant. Little Ron, I want to talk business with you. Go ahead. I'm listening. The magical potion feast. Since you're the main inventor, I'll have someone send your share of the income to your magic crystal card. When you have enough magic crystals, your path as a magic swordsman should be a bit easier now. Ron listened calmly. Not bad, with magic crystals in hand. Everything feels much lighter. Then Yuna said seriously, "Are you sure you don't need me to have a magic sword master teach you?" "No need. Didn't you say the Earl's mansion has no top-tier magic sword masters right now? Hired ones come with too many uncertainties." This remark from Ron finally showed a bit more maturity. Yuna wasn't surprised. She had long known Ron was a prodigy in many aspects. "All right then, little Ron, your path is your own. And Vivian must teach little Ron well. Of course, just look at whose maid she is. Little Ron only has one maid. Do you want sister to?" "No, Vivian is just fine." "Sister? Sister really doesn't have to be this good to me." Ron's eyes carried a mix of feelings, gratitude and curiosity. Yuna's response was to hug little Ron again. This time she didn't hold too tightly. She knew her limits, saying, "Little Ron is just too adorable." Could this be what they called a cuteness addict in a past life? Oh, indeed. Yuna should return Ron's ordinary life. After a while, Ron was teased by the older sister again. It took him great effort to escape her clutches. The Baron's side really couldn't understand why Ron didn't see them off a bit longer and just went back as soon as the carriage departed. After all, they would meet again soon. So what was the point of seeing off? Sure enough, 3 months later, Yuna visited Sandy Territory again, although she didn't bring other nobles with her. But by now, the magic potion feast was becoming popular, and the inventor of the magic potion feast became known more quickly. Another 4 months later, a magic potion prodigy emerged from the Borg Baron household, named Ron, the inventor of the magic potion feast. He was only a little over 7 years old. The person who uncovered the truth spread the news, intentionally or unintentionally. Sandy Territory. Such a remote, small territory was first known and understood by the people of the kingdom. There was the little magic potion prodigy, the birthplace of the magic potion feast. For Ron, he was almost 8, the age when he would first enter the Magic and Martial Academy, and his reputation was already spreading before enrollment. Coincidentally, Ron knew that when the news leaked, Yuna was right beside him, playing cards. "Vivian, are you telling the truth? A potion feast." Yuna, who was intently watching the cards being played. Don't look at me, sis. I've been keeping it from them for 7 months. That's a long time." Only 7 months. Helpless against the lively older sister, Ron could only reclaim his pride in card games. "King again, +3. I win. How is this possible?" "You win again." A few days later, little Ron wanted to take Vivian out of the territory for a casual stroll. Suddenly, someone claiming to be a disciple of a master alchemist stopped Ron and his group. "Let's go? The master invites you." "No way. A potion genius?" Ron's main aspiration was to be a magic swordsman, not to specialize in potion making. Nug, a potion apprentice. Bolton, as the disciple of a master alchemist, was definitely arrogant and haughty. Because of the high status of alchemists, as a disciple of a master alchemist, Bolton rarely cared about the opinions of common people. At that time, when he first heard that the inventor of the magic potion feast was a child, he absolutely refused to believe it, unless his name were written backward. His mentor even said they would come to Sandy Territory once, specifically for the genius Ron. After several days, even someone as proud as Burton had to believe that there really was such a genius in the world. On the road, even until now, Burton thought, why wasn't it him who invented the magic potion feast? The principles of this part of potion making shouldn't be that difficult. This was Burton taking things for granted. The magic potion feast was actually still in its early stages, mainly succeeding through color, aroma, and taste. In his previous life, Ron was born in an ancient land renowned for its culinary culture. Now in Sandy Territory, without internet or other entertainment, he was simply passing the time and improving meals. The dishes were too novel for the people of this other world. They had rarely seen such delicious food with perfect color, aroma, and taste. With the addition of a few potions that also nourished the body, how could it not become popular? For years, the Alchemist Guild had regulations against wasting magical plants. Under these multiple reasons, a magical potion feast was actually invented by a mere young boy. The little genius's partner was the young lady of the Tulip family, Yuna, full name Yuna Tulip. She was the second daughter of a noble with count inheritance rights. After Ron invented the magical potion feast, there was a steady stream of magic crystals. With the count as a backing, it was not easy to force things. Rumor had it that the count's daughter now lived permanently in Sandy Territory. There were also rumors that Yuna was avoiding her brother taking over the title. How could outsiders know the truth? When it came to Bolton, he thought that geniuses always had pride. It was understandable that he had refused the mentor's invitation the first time. Therefore, Bolton followed Ron's group without explanation. That day, Ron brought Vivian along with 2 guards from Sandy Territory. For the moment, it was difficult to drive Bolton away. Oh well, he just pretended not to hear whatever Bolton said. My mentor is Master John, a renowned potion master even in the capital. Ron, won't you consider it? Ignored. I'll just say it directly. My mentor invited you because he intends to take you as his apprentice. What a great opportunity. Back in the day, when I, Bolton, wanted to become my mentor's disciple, I went through many trials and barely passed. Ignored. No. Ron, are you listening to me, Bolton? My mentor. After walking for a while, Bolton suddenly felt foolish. Why was he telling a kid all this? He might as well go talk to Baron Sandy's estate. Stopping to watch Ron and his group leave, Bolton turned and hurried toward the Lord's estate. Ron finally felt some peace and quiet. What magic potion master? Just thinking about it was a huge trouble written all over it. Because the magic potion feast, in its early stages, mainly relied on its own flavor, and Ron had only studied basic magic potion theory for a while. Did he really have talent in magic potions? Ron was self-aware and always felt it was uncertain, but he couldn't stand people insisting he was an ultimate magic potion genius. Magic crystals stirred hearts, especially the magic potion feast that could bring a steady stream of magic crystals. Whoever said Ron wasn't a magic potion genius would be the first to disagree. Ron himself wanted to disagree with himself. That's enough. Lately, he couldn't just stay idle, always slacking off and playing. He wanted to study the several books of potion formulas Una had brought, hoping, could it be that I'm actually a top-notch potion prodigy? Young master, why did you suddenly laugh? Vivian, I'm happy. Is it because that annoying person left? Partly that, and by the way, today's a holiday, so let's first drop by your place. Then wander around a bit. I'll be heading back later today. There might be some commotion at home. Very well, young master. Sandy Lane, Viscount's mansion. Bolton arrived at the Viscount's mansion gate for the first time. At first glance, the gate had a decent enough appearance. Because Una often came to play that three-player game, she had casually ordered the underlings to fix up the Lord's mansion. Finally, the dilapidated noble estate showed some improvement. However, when Una proposed a major renovation of the Ron family, Ron refused. How could that be? He believed the family home should be renovated by himself in the future. Ron was still thinking about designing his own house someday. He couldn't waste the opportunity to design a residence. Therefore, after Burton entered, he still commented blandly, "This is indeed a remote barony." But although the inner room was not lavishly decorated, Burton dared not underestimate it. This family had produced an alchemy genius. Previously, Ron's attitude of being caught in a dilemma and too lazy to bother only made Burton believe more strongly that this was the pride of a genius. He must complete his mentor's task. In the future, when latecomer disciples of his mentor discovered new potions, they would set a topic for the senior disciples to ponder. Wouldn't the issues of magic crystals and potion materials then be resolved? It concerned his own interests. Burton kept reminding himself to be amiable, to speak with conviction, and to appeal to emotions. But after Burton spoke politely with Baron Borg, he immediately lost his composure. My mentor asked about my son. My mentor inviting him. A tremendous blessing. Asked about my son. Was that all the Baron would say? Later, the Baron's words changed a bit, but the meaning was still asked about my son. See. Burton angrily muttered a phrase alchemists used to discipline their disciples. Usually, that was how his mentor scolded him. Truly like father, like son, both so tight-lipped. That day, Bolton couldn't help but curse a couple of times in his heart as he went back. Someone as proud as him had rarely lowered his voice to be polite, only to end up with such an outcome. On his way back, impulse tore through a sliver of his reason, and he said some harsh words to his mentor, as if he didn't respect him at all. But the very next day, Master John came in person. Unlike Bolton, this time the entire family of the minor baron came to visit. When Ron arrived, he was holding a pharmacology manual that Una said was from an alchemist nearing the level of a legendary potion master. Nearing, meaning the source of the book was still at the master level. A master expert approaching a legendary potion master. His theories were indeed remarkable. One couldn't help but sigh. At the pinnacle of skills, there is still something in common. Ordinary people find it hard to understand, but Ron knew. Wasn't this genetics? How do magical plants change their traits? What medicinal properties does the same magical plant have in different elemental secret realms? The manual covered many research topics, but Ron's interest ultimately settled on the so-called elemental secret realms. The elemental marvels of the magic world, the eye of the wind, the thunder domain, and even the elemental tide. This master of potions must be a wise person who has traveled 10,000 miles and united knowledge with practice. Ron was called over without explanation to meet John. John intentionally made Ron wait in a separate room for a long time. Coincidentally, cramming at the last moment, Ron burned the midnight oil to absorb more potion theory. Nearly an hour had passed. John arrived late. The little genius Ron, having waited so long, remained seated calmly, neither anxious nor restless nor playful, a promising talent. John's fondness for talent arose, and the displeasure from yesterday's words of Burton unconsciously dissipated quite a bit. Drawing closer, little Ron was still immersed in the world of the handwritten notes. John looked again at little Ron's earnest little face, and felt even more that he should take him as a disciple. Coming closer, he saw Anthony's Introduction to Pharmacology. This book, the little guy has been reading it fast. You don't understand, do you? Let me, John, teach this future disciple. So the little guy knows that entering my tutelage is not bad. Little guy, reading a book, why have you been looking at this page for so long? Is there anything you don't understand? John's voice rang out, his tone as amiable as possible. Little Ron was immersed in the book's description of the elemental secret realm, finally noticing someone approaching. There are plenty of things I don't understand. Old Grandpa, can you tell me? Since John's appearance looked much older, Ron addressed him that way. At this childish yet polite remark, John completely forgot what Baden had said earlier. Wasn't this supposed to be an arrogant genius with no respect for elders? Baden, relying on his trust, was really getting more and more unreliable. Making a mental note to scold Baden when he got back, John spoke kindly to little Ron. All right, young one, go ahead and ask. Seizing the chance to have his questions answered, Ron asked things like, how was the lightning elemental secret realm formed? Could it be that people in this world have an affinity for the lightning element? How can someone enter and exit the lightning realm? What causes the elemental tide? And are the beast tides it causes real? In the book, when Anthony was not strong, he even fled from a beast tide. Question after question. At first, John didn't think much of it, but after many questions, not a single one was about potionology. What's going on? Winky face? Little genius Ron is reading Anthony's Introduction to Pharmacology. Is there nothing he doesn't understand? Or is this little guy simply not interested in potion pharmacology? Thinking this, either guess would only displease John. John Lawson suddenly stopped explaining and said, as if persuading, little one, you're reading this book. Do you have any doubts about potionology? Yes, of course. Right here, an analysis of the causes of elemental mutations in the mercury flower when grown in different regions. Why does the mercury flower have only one phenotype, whether in a blazing region or an icy zone? Other potion plants have changed their properties after hundreds of years. Only a few potion plants, including the mercury flower, remain unchanged in properties. In the book, the speculation and reasoning about this always seemed to be missing something. Finally, a smile reappeared on old John's aged face. The little guy was indeed studying magic potions, and that was enough. However, his earlier curiosity about the world made John worry that the kid might take it into his head to become an adventurer. Old John quickly said, you might not know this, little one. This book is an introduction to pharmacology. I've seen another explanation in other masters' books. Listen, there were countless specialized pharmacological terms in this other world. Ron extracted from old John's long speech the information that mercury flower was once transplanted from the holy domain of light. There, over 1,000 years ago, a miracle had manifested. The divine, under certain conditions, transcended all common sense of the material world. These magical plants transplanted from the holy domain of light only exhibited one trait, ignoring all changes in the elemental environment. Such was their unreasonableness. Little Ron then inquired further about the miracle. Regarding this, Ron showed even more interest than he had in the elemental secret realm earlier. Old John was quite skilled in speech. In answering Ron, he deliberately included more about magic potions. It was meant to guide Ron's ambitions toward elemental professions. For a long moment, Ron pondered old John's words, his youthful voice falling silent. After a brief silence, old John suddenly spoke up. Little one, why did you ask about a later question in the book? Do you understand all the earlier parts? Absorbing old John's teachings, Ron replied without hesitation. The earlier parts of the book? I more or less understand. I'll just have to test it out when I get the chance. The topic of magical plant genetics had really sparked Ron's interest. Hearing this, old John said, what do you mean by more or less? Are you sure there's no problem with the earlier content? Skeptical, old John tested him. The ice soul lotus in the fire domain beast forest. Why does it display both water and fire traits? While its ice attribute is hidden. That's simple. The book says it should be influenced by another magical plant. I guess that plant must be a fire-type ancient tree. Rumor has it that fire-type druids appear there. I really wonder, can that ancient tree really transform into a flame tree spirit? A humanoid flame tree spirit. All right, let's skip that question. Then another one, Guangshan grass, this kind of grass. One question after another. Finally, old Joe's calm expression vanished, and his face turned excited. Little Ron, right? Would you be willing to take me as your mentor? No, thank you, Grandpa Joe. Ron doesn't want a mentor. Old Joe's face fell immediately. Why? No reason. After a few more exchanges, Ron had no choice but to say helplessly, my aspiration for an elemental profession is to be a magic swordsman. A main profession as a potioneer isn't suitable for me. A magic swordsman, isn't that just an adventurer? What's so good about being an adventurer? Potioneering is much better, respected, and without danger. No, not a magic swordsman adventurer, but a magic swordsman lord. The little guy has a point, but wouldn't a potioneer lord be even better? Only a lord with strength is a good lord. They went back and forth, but Ron wouldn't give in. Later, he just responded with things like, oh. It was clearly perfunctory, just like back then with Burton. But at this moment, old Joe still didn't want to give up. In the end, feeling guilty, Ron revealed his weakness. Actually, Grandpa John, my talent in potions is quite ordinary. My talents in the other 4 elemental aspects, water, earth, wind, and fire, are just SOSO. I only happen to understand the theories in this book by chance. However, at that moment, old John clearly didn't believe him. Ron added, look, I can't even tell fire potions from wind potions sometimes. Those dozen or so earth chickens are proof. As he spoke, Ron matter-of-factly recounted the invention process of the potion feast. He couldn't go into details, of course, but the part about the earth chickens being used for testing was nothing special. Finally, after testing Ron on a few basic potion knowledge points, old John believed what little Ron said. Ron sighed in relief and said, see, Grandpa, I'm really not a potion genius. After a moment of silence, old John suddenly laughed, finally able to laugh heartily at little Ron's naivety. Kid, don't you know? There are such things as potion theory geniuses in this world. Potion theory is sometimes superior to potion practice. And once again, Grandpa launched into a long lecture. Well, Ron gained some insight. In his past life, there were theoretical physicists, experimental physicists. Specialized fields of civilization really do exist. The magical civilization has reached this stage. I am not a genius. Really not. No, you are. You are a genius in potion theory.